The Himalayan vulture or Himalayan griffon vulture is an Old World vulture in the family Accipitridae, closely related to the European griffon vulture, and once considered a subspecies of it. This species is found along the Himalayas and the adjoining Tibetan Plateau. It is one of the two largest Old World vultures and true raptors. This is a huge vulture, and is perhaps the largest and heaviest bird found in the Himalayas. Adults have ruff, that is long, and pale brown with white streaks. The ruff feathers are long and spiky. The head is covered in down which is yellowish in adults, but whitish in immature vultures. The underside and underwing coverts are quite pale brown or buff, being almost white in some specimens. The legs are covered with buffy feathers, and the feet can vary from greenish-grey to white. The upperside is unstreaked, pale buff with the tail quills, outer grey to coverts and wing quills being a contrasting dark brown. The inner-secondaries have paler tips. The pale blue facial skin is lighter than the dark blue in Gyps fulvus with this species, having a yellowish bill. In flight the long fingers are splayed, and there is a pale patagial stripe on the underwing. The wing and tail feathers are dark, and contrast with the pale coverts and body, one of the best methods to distinguish this species from the slightly smaller griffon vulture. The feathers on the body have pale shaft streaks. They are distinguished from the Indian vulture, which can somewhat similar in color by being much larger with a stouter, more robust bill. Younger birds have a pale parts to the bill, and tend to have buffy white streaks on the scapulars and wing coverts contrasting with dark brown underparts. They are similar in size to the cinereous vulture, which has a slightly shorter overall length, but in large specimens, can weigh more than the Himalayan vulture. Weight in Himalayan vultures can range from reportedly as little as 6 kilograms to as much as 12.5 kilograms. A field study estimated an average of 9 kilograms for the Himalayan vulture, but weights can vary with conditions from 8 to a circumflex 12 kilograms. The wingspan of birds varies greatly depending on the method used to measure them, and published measurements vary from 2.56 to 3.1 m, a similar wingspan range as a cinereous vulture. The species is found mainly in the higher regions of the Himalayas, the Pamukkas Axton, and on the Tibetan Plateau, with northwestern limits of the breeding range being in Afghanistan and southern limits in Bhutan. Juvenile birds may however disperse further south, and vagrants have been recorded in Thailand, Burma, Singapore, and Cambodia. The Himalayan vulture perches on crags, favorite sites showing white marks from regular defecation. They tend to not range below an elevation of 1,215 m. Himalayan vultures often bask in the sun on rocks. They soar in thermals, and are not capable of sustained flapping flight. Flocks may follow grazers up the mountains in their search for dead animals. This vulture makes a rattling sound when descending on a carcass, and can grunt, or hiss at roosts, or when feeding on carrion. They have been recorded eating carrion exclusively, some which is fed on even when putrid. On the Tibetan Plateau 64% of their diet is obtained from dead domestic elk. They feed on old carcasses, sometimes waiting a couple of days near a dead animal. They disdain offal, which is readily eaten by other vultures, and instead typically eat only fleshy parts. Historically, Himalayan vultures regularly fed on human corpses left out on celestial burial grounds. This species is fairly contentious around other scavengers, and typically dominates other meat-eaters at carrion, though is subservient to grey wolves, snow leopards and cinereous vultures at carcasses. In a large party, these vultures can reportedly strip a human or sheep carcass of all meat in 30 minutes, and do the same to a yak carcass in roughly 120 minutes. Himalayan vultures have been observed feeding on pine needles, an unexplained behavior that cannot be for obtaining nutrition.